still vibrations of all vibrations. Be with vibration. Face down, does not let go. Quiets, stills, dissolves, evaporates to find next one. So I wanted to read a little bit from Devatma Shakti. This is on Raja Yoga. And what Ram Vishnu Tirth is talking about is Chitta. So he was discussing Raja Yoga, which is the practice related to the mind. And he said, before we proceed further, it is necessary to first have a clear idea of what the mind is. It denotes the faculty of willing, thinking, and desiring. Another aspect of mind, which includes passions, emotions, and sentiments, is called chitta. The third aspect of that, of reasoning, discrimination, inferences, memory, and ideation, it is called buddhi, or intellectual faculty. The last and the finest aspect of the mind is the idea of personal consciousness. That is the feeling of one's personal existence. It is called ahamkar or asmita, the idea of I or ego sense. Consciousness serves as a background for all perceptions, thoughts, desires, emotions, and knowledge. Thus, the Indian psychologists have divided the faculty of the mind under 4 heads: mind, intellect, chitta, and ahamkar. All 4 are included in the term antakarna, which means the inner organ. Sometimes the word chitta is used for all these aspects. The word chitta is translated as mind stuff, but in that sense, it stands for chitta kasha, senses of perception and powers of action are called vyakarnas, the outer organs, as opposed to the inner organs. The 2 make up the psychic body. Mind is regarded by the Indian philosophers as made up of a very fine substance, even finer than ether. Chitta assumes 3 states of consciousness: waking, dreaming, and sleep. All modifications of chitta have been classified under 5 heads, namely direct perceptions, which include inference, indirect knowledge through books and hearsay. So it's clear, right knowledge are those 3: direct perception, inference, and indirect knowledge through books and hearsay evidence. 2, elusive knowledge like that of mirage or a serpent in a rope. 3, knowledge gained from words standing for no corresponding objects. That's fancy. And 4, sound sleep, sleep without dreams, when mind is overcome by tamo guna. And 5, memory. It has been said that mind has a tendency to get agitated through attachment, aversion, and fear in the forms of feelings, emotions, and passions. But soul shines behind the chitta through its multifarious modifications, and in consequence is unable to feel and realize its own nature. And therefore many schools of thoughts have wrongly confused the light of soul with the working of mind, and regarded it as identical with the emotional part of man's nature, whereas emotions are simply the functions of chitta. Chitta reflects the light of soul and dethrones it, as it were, from its place and entangles it in its waverings. This goes to the two-sided mirror that we talked about last week. That's how we get entangled. So it is detached from God and made to stoop in the objective world of miseries, pains, happiness, and sensual pleasures, joys, sorrows, fears, and hatred. Through yoga, soul can be disentangled and freed from the workings of chitta by keeping it calm and vacant. When the 3 states of waking, dreaming, and sleep are overcome, the soul reposes in its own nature and is able to feel its separate existence, undefiled by the touch of chitta. And in that state, the union of soul with God becomes possible. Science of yoga therefore teaches us how to calm down the chitta of its modifications through concentration. And I've spoken many times about Tert's understanding of concentration, where he speaks of inertia, activity, and calmness, and how the two of inertia and calmness are completely opposite, poles asunder, but everybody gets them confused. And after we've dealt with inertia and then the activity, and then the working to get the mind under control, it says that its movements are reduced to definite purposes and are on definite lines. It learns to work to useful ends. Such is the mind of sober people, scholars, and people of culture. The 4th stage of the mind is its calm mood, without any ripples of thoughts or waves of passions, free from vain desires and idle thoughts. Such mind is thus mostly vacant and motionless, peaceful and calm. It ceases to will and hug fondly the never-ending train of hankerings. In this state, a person finds solace and peace, which are wanting in the foregoing states. Tranquility then rules, and peace is the order. This is called the one-pointed state. In the 5th stage, the mind begins to be concentrated. Perceptions, inferences, memory, and ideas begin to dwindle out and gradually fade to consciousness, but not to sleep. Such a state of mind is Nirodha. So that's where we're heading. when we work to still. And I wanted to read just a bit about the Kundalini, the Shakti. As of all, with hills, woods, lands, the support is the Lord of Serpents. So of all treaties of yoga, the support verily is Kundalini. When awakened, she, Kundalini, is experienced by yogins as a spiritual guide who directs, controls, governs, and leads the aspirants on the spiritual path to moksha, like a living, conscious, divine helpmate, with her vigilant hand helping her favorite all the 24 hours in sleep, dreams, and waking state, and at times takes him for the somatic union with her Lord. She then works not passively as when sleeping, but as Divine Mother on all three planes of physical, astral, and causal bodies. Her movements are then felt, her voice heard, and presence experienced. She then becomes a reality and not simply an object of imagination and conjecture. To a person of the modern education, every idea connected with spirituality conveys an impression of something like nothing. If anything, it is of a nature falling into the realm of unreality and superstition. To students of physical science, metaphysics, every thought pertaining to God and powers of the spiritual world suggest an abnormality of brain. Any attempt to understand or systematize phenomena of the higher planes of spiritual life, a waste of time, and any expression of divine powers is simply absurd and meaningless. But fortunately, in recent years, attention of some of our educated persons on Western lines has taken a turn. Faith is not always superstition. Faith combined with constructive reasoning prepares ground for sound knowledge. Faith governs the motive power and breeds desire for knowledge, which in turn gives necessary impetus for research work. Sound and constructive reasoning shows the right path and guards against loopholes and pitfalls. Strong faith tempered with sound constructive reasoning is therefore what a research student of any field must need. But for some time past, we have been witnessing in our educated people a tendency of fostering that line of reasoning which is justly named destructive, absolutely devoid of faith. This tendency has been making the mind of our youths a barren land of hot sands where no seed of spiritual knowledge can grow. Five senses, combined with admittedly incomplete aid of inference, are by such men regarded quite sufficient to unravel the vast hidden treasures of nature, knowledge lying behind the superficial phenomena of nature. The sixth sense of intuition and inspiration that has been through all ages the secret spring of knowledge relied upon by all geniuses of the past and the present is unknown to them and is knowingly kept closed. Only through faith and deep concentration of mind leading to abstractedness, this spring of knowledge can be opened and utilized. Kundalini, according to him, has met a similar fate. She is defined by some nerve unknown. So people discard it. Woodruff, in his foreword to The Mysterious Kundalini, has correctly and in the clearest expression has refuted the nerve view of Kundalini in these words. She is the grand potential. As such, she cannot, in my view, be identified with any of the products which she becomes. Kundalini is, in my opinion, a gross form of Shakti. She is then not as such, in my view, a nerve or any other physical substance or mental faculty, but the ground substance of both, which, on being roused, ascends and is merged in the higher principles, ending in Shiva Shakti principle when she is said to have merged in Paramashiva. Kundalini is the dynamic real as the residual power, the power left over after the production of world. When she coils herself around the linga or static real and rests, we fully endorse the above life principle. Roused Kundalini is not a temporary result of the nerve stimuli. She is a permanent power working throughout, independent of the nervous system, divine by nature, and source of our life, intelligence, and consciousness. Through her activity comes to manifestation through nerves, heart, and brain. The physical exercise of certain nerves helps to rouse her dormant power, just in the same way as by revolving a dynamo, electricity is generated. Electric power by no means being identical with the metallic wires wrapped round a magnet. Kundalini is also roused by divine love and devotion and utter self-surrender to God through japa or repetition of his holy names, his meditation and spiritual knowledge. She is also awakened by the favor of spiritual masters who by a mere touch or a kindly look do in a second arouse the Kundalini Shakti of those whom they are pleased to favor. The last process is known as initiation through Shaktipat, that is, transmission of Shakti. She can also be awakened by fixing the mind at Muladhara, the seat of Kundalini, and through strong concentration of the mind at that point. Kundalini is real. Shakti is real. And the awakening of the Kundalini helps us to then continue to still the modifications of Chitta. All those modifications have to be stilled. Okay, open to questions. Mm-hmm.
So, from what you just read, you mentioned that the Kundalini is conscious, and in the past you also explained that you have referred to the Shakti as the deep mind, from where solutions for our lives arise,
Mm-hmm.
and that this is not arbitrary. And so I wanted to ask, because you also have often talked about people around Baba who were just basking in the Shakti, and people around you who relate to the Shakti as vital energy, and the Guru as an energy provider. And my question is, since the Kundalini is conscious, how is it possible that people relate to the Shakti as a source of vital energy that they can access and control when it is convenient for them?
That's okay. Good question. The reality is that if people realize if their Kundalini is awakened and then they are not around a guru who is continuing to provide that Shakti, and they are not doing the work that needs to be done internally, that Shakti is not at their beck and call. And they can only think it will be when they have it. And once they walk away and they've not been doing anything, it goes, it leaves, it's gone. So it has to be fed appropriately. It has to be nurtured appropriately. It is consciousness and it will guide us. And if we are caught up in our, what I read about chitta and our I sense and our ego and our shrunken selves, if we are caught up in thinking that who thinks is who we are, and all that process of thinking is in fact me, and I can decide everything, the Shakti is going to, because it is consciousness, leave. Because it will leave for our own good. Otherwise, what happens is it feeds and we become lunatics. We become power-hungry, crazy people. So it's not going to allow, we're going to end up being crashed down. It is all consciousness, the Shakti, and it will guide and teach us. And if we are willing to listen, but we are having to be the servant to the Shakti. The Shakti is not our servant. Yeah.
Having watched that process of crashing quite dramatically when I was a child, and somebody else, I think the line from Devat and Shakti, faith is not fancy, was quite apt, because the amount that you can convince yourself of almost anything is really remarkable. And so if there is no grounding of understanding both the source and the nature of the Shakti, you can superimpose any kind of narrative that you want if you lose contact with that sort of ongoing font of Shakti. And so it becomes the subject of fancy and ends up driving you, as she said, to lunacy, because you make up all sorts of things and make all kinds of decisions.
And around Baba, people believed, they forgot that Baba was the source of the Shakti at that point. They were not at that point self-generating the Shakti. And so what would happen is they would leave the ashram and everything would go because they hadn't learned who the Shakti is and what their responsibility is and who they are. That answer your question?
Yes. So is there, when the Shakti is experienced, so there is a misinterpretation or a misread of the experience?
Totally. So what happens is people then, because the person who is experiencing it is in the particular package. And so, and probably who they think they are is not necessarily that far along in their work or understanding. And so they will then believe that they are the Shakti, and that they will then interpret that the Shakti is theirs, that they can have it at all times, and it is going to be at their beck and call.
And they don't need anyone else.
And they don't need any, that's right. And they don't need to study or anyone else, because what's happened, and this is the problem with pop philosophy and culture in terms of self-help groups, thinking that when we do spiritual practice, it's just to become a bigger, better us. No, if we're going to truly be happy, we actually have to know that we are not who we think we are. And so it is delusional. And I've seen so many people, absolutely, it just fed their delusion of who they thought they were. It was always sitting in there. Either they had a desire to be the biggest, the bestest, the whateverest, and they wanted to be in charge of the entire world or whatever, and it just did it. And they got it for 2 seconds, and then lo and behold, they lost it. And what happens is then they pretend. So for people who are born again Christians, a lot of times they will have an awakening, an honest, true awakening, but nobody is there to help and guide them. And so they then think that it's going to now last forever, and they have found the truth and they're done. And lo and behold, of course, what's going to happen is, and Baba talks about this, it quiets down. And if you don't keep doing the work, and you don't do the tapasya, the burning, the cleaning of the vehicles, it goes away. It just dies down. And so a lot of those kind of people, just like in the ashram, then pretend that they have it, because it's only a memory now. It's a past tense. They don't have it anymore, but they can't accept that, and they don't want to tell anybody they lost it.
So the Shakti is conscious, but as a disciple we are not. So we need somebody who actually understands the Shakti experientially and can guide us.
100%. 100%.
Relating correctly. Shakti.
100%. What?
And reading it correctly.
And reading it correctly. Yes, and reading it correctly. 100%. The Shakti is conscious. We're not, but the Shakti is. And it's going to play with us unless we get on board with it. And the only reason, think about it, the one who we think we are is enlivened by truly consciousness, but we've forgotten that and we think we are self-illuminative. And if we are identified with the mind and the one who thinks, we then believe we are self-illuminative, and the fact is we are not. The mind is not self-illuminative. And if you notice, sometimes the mind appears to be subject, and sometimes the mind appears to be object.
And I can attest to that whole experience for me. That's what happened to me, and it does disappear completely. Gone.
Yeah.
It's not a fun experience.
And then what happens is either you decide, okay, it was all a hoax in the first place, and it's not real, and leave, and go on to live, quote, ordinary life, back to normal, ordinary life. Or you return to the practice and you get back on and see what it was that happened, and know that each and every one of us can go off in a heartbeat. And it is not about believing we're ever done. And that's what Johannes said was true, because what happens is people then believe the Shakti that they're experiencing is it, is the end, be all. Now here's my question. When you were experiencing it, who was experiencing it?
The little one.
The little one who made all the decisions about it.
Yeah. Who thought they were big.
That thought they were big. Exactly. And you weren't one with the Shakti? No.
No.
No. No.
No. Not at all.
There it is.
What you just said about memory and how it becomes a memory that then I can decide what that is or what it means or what it was, and then not wanting anyone to know about it. Sort of like what Christy just said. I mean, the note I just wrote is Bernie's answer to Johannes's question exactly delineates what I did and what happened in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes directly to this reason for comedy you've just given us with exhilarating power, sensation, and chemistry, and believing that I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's no more work, that I'm realized it's it, it's over.
Right. It's fascinating because the one who decides that is the one that's not going to be there when you are done. That's the joke.
And it does go away. When I was gone, I had nothing, nada, and didn't want anyone to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm fine. I'm great. It's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, you want to speak up a little bit? Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had a question this week about meditation,
Mm-hmm.
and also how I think you have spoken in the past about how meditation is sort of like a crucible, a place that we burn the modification, we burn the vibrations, burn
Yeah.
them down.
Yep.
And I was wondering burn that, we get kind of deeper and deeper into it. Is it kind of like, but then like, how does, I guess, our state in meditation relate to our state when we are?
Because we then stay there. We then stay where we go in our meditation. So we come out of meditation, but we stay in that place deep so that we are closer to the source. And so looking at acting appropriately will be different. Will what arises as the action will be very different from what would arise as the action from a very superficial place. And when we meditate, if we are burning up those vibrations, then we are burning up the scaffolding of our system that would say, oh, this thing happens, this is my response. Whereas if I'm going to then be, after meditation, I come out of meditation and into the world, I then will respond very differently to a very similar situation that I've had in the past. I might have a lag time of, wow, I can reflect on this. Wow, I know exactly what I've done in the past. Wow, what's appropriate right now? And that appropriate is going to come from deep inside.
So meditation helps you, is a way in which you can burn a lot of vibration and get to a deeper place, so that when you are interacting with the world, that you are.
It's very different. It's very, very different. You're not like a robot doing your litany that you always did and that it never gets to change. So the highest state, let me just say this, the highest state is what they call Sahaj Samadhi, walking bliss, and it's being in the heart and looking out at the world simultaneously. So you're living that state all the time, whatever you're doing.
You are living where you can get to in meditation, that you are often walking around.
Correct.
Translate very much to like, yeah, that is, yes. Looking at my question, that is, I'm having a hard time of like when I'm meditating and can go deeper and you are there to guide me to go deeper, but then when I am then needing to interact with the world.
You go back up here.
Yeah, it's like a fraction at best, right? Like, yeah, and then there's like this time in which like right after meditation is better, and then just
Yes.
goes off, and then I'm like, again, you know, like, and you kind of meditate again, you get deeper, and it's ultimately it's this curve where you go up. And then
Absolutely. That's 100%. That's exactly where, so for people who went or have gone really deeply, the Kundalini has been incredibly strong. They then believe they're done. They walk away, and then it all goes away. Just like you're saying, that is what happens for everyone. It takes a long time to then stay there. That's the practice, to stay there, to be able to remain there, so that then when you come out of meditation, you walk somewhere, you meet your worst farmer, and you go, okay, I know this, I got this. And then you know, wow. And you then meet another very, oh, I've seen this one before. I know exactly how to respond. So that it isn't the goal. The goal of sadhana isn't to make a perfect life out here. The goal of sadhana is to be able to be with God all the time. So that means not just when we meditate, but when we're playing with our farmers as well. And if we can do that, then whatever our karma is will unfold, but we will be okay. That goes to the never had a bad day. I personally wouldn't want that man's life that he had. I don't want that. But he had that, and he was with God all the time, so it didn't matter. And that's the practice. So you finish meditation. Where did I go? Oh, there. So now, that's why I used to go, can you pick up a tissue box and put it down? You got it now? That was the whole thing. Can you walk out the door? Can you say hello? It's all that.
So the fact that I can't do that now is not that I'm failing, it's just where I am.
Correct.
And by meditating and practicing, when I'm coming out of meditation, taking out my cup and seeing, I say that you are just practicing bringing it that much further through your life.
Yes, 100%. Perfectly said. Perfectly said. That's exactly it. That's it. Yep. David, do you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to say, because one of the things
Speak
that you
next.
can juxtapose with what Leah is bringing up is it's so easy, this consumerist attitude to meditation, that it's so easy to have. Okay, I'm going to go to meditation. I had experience X. I have this great experience. Now I'm walking out. You might as well have gone out to dinner and had a nice meal. Who cares about the experience? What are you doing now?
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
Compartmentalize it into a part of your life that you go to meditation, that's the experience you have there without the effort to then see that where you are in meditation should be, you should be striving constantly to bring that into your life.
100%. It is in your life at all times. Seamless. Yes. Seamless with God all times. So I get to here in meditation. I walk out. I don't want to go back up to here and function the way I always functioned. No, I want to be able to go from this place of where I am right now. And then if I keep doing this, if I am willing to be with my experience where I am in the moment and let whatever comes up in the moment and function appropriately from there in the moment, that will be, I will be actually continuing to do the tapasya, the burning, the purifying in all my days. And so that then I will be going down a little bit deeper, and then a little bit deeper, and then a little bit deeper.
And if you are practicing to do that in between these times when you sit and meditate, the place that you start from when you begin meditating is already deeper than when.
Correct. 100%. It is. And when we meditate, it's like a laboratory. We've removed all the outside paraphernalia. Yes. Yes. Yes, exactly. Correct. Good questions, really good. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Thank you. That helped everybody. That was great.